Hello everyone, Twana Michelle here, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Coach and Mental Health Therapist. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about red flags that need to be deal breakers. So if you are getting to know someone or if you are in a relationship with someone, you may see signs that indicate something isn't quite right. A red flag is basically a signal that alerts you that something is wrong. You want to stop, pause, take notice. Sometimes with red flags, we need additional information to sort of figure out if this is what we think it is, or maybe if it's something different. So there are some red flags that you might see as just something to be cautious about. And then there are some red flags that need to be absolutely deal breakers, meaning this ain't gonna get any better, it's only gonna get worse. You need to get out of there, okay? So I'm gonna give you 5 red flags that need to be deal breakers. So the first red flag that I'm gonna tell you about is a super important one. Anyone who is lying about their personal demographics in a relationship is someone that you need to rid yourself of immediately, okay? What I mean by personal demographics is things like their age, their birthday, where they live, what they do for a living, whether or not they're married, whether or not they have children, things about their families, their background, all of these demographics that make them who they are as a person are very important. And anyone who will lie about those things, for one, will lie about anything. And secondly, their intent in doing so is to manipulate you for the purpose of probably doing you harm. So anyone who lies about, of course, being married, whether or not they have kids, like, they don't care that they're lying to you. Their purpose is to deceive you. Their purpose is to betray you. So if you find these things out early, because sometimes we don't, sometimes we find these things out later and it's like, if only I had known, but maybe there were red flags or signs in the beginning that you overlooked, so you missed it. But anybody who will lie about these things are unhealthy, toxic, probably personality disordered, probably looking at a narcissist. We might be looking at someone who is a sociopath, antisocial personality disorder, but we are not looking at a healthy individual that really wants to connect with you on a genuine level. Lying about who you are at your core is a major sign that someone is really not trying to form a real relationship with you. They are not trying to become intimate with you emotionally. They are not trying to really get to know you on a personal level. Well, let me take that back. They're trying to get to know you, but they don't want you to get to know them. Some of the reasons are, like I said, they already know that they're going to be deceiving you, betraying you, they're going to be doing you some kind of harm. But also, they may have a past that they don't want you to know about. So the less information you have about them, the less likely you are to be able to pull up things, especially nowadays with Google. I mean, you can find out anything about anybody if you have certain information about them. But if you don't have accurate information, then what you find on your partner or potential partner is limited. And I've experienced that personally. I have been with someone who lied about their age, lied about their date of birth, and I found that out a little later in the relationship. Um, I had no clue. Who would lie about that, right? But I found that out later in the relationship, and he was like, "Well, I was older than you, so I was a little insecure about that." It doesn't matter. First of all, men typically aren't insecure about being older than women. And secondly, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're trying to form a relationship with someone, then you guys need to get to know each other. And lying about personal demographics is one way to avoid doing just that. He didn't want me to know him. Later discovered out why. There were things from his past that he didn't want me to know about, but that is a huge, huge red flag that has to be a deal breaker. The second red flag that needs to be a deal breaker is when you are dealing with someone who is afraid of commitment or does not want a commitment and you do. I know many of us have been in these relationships where you have the so-called friends with benefits situation, or you have someone who is just stringing you along and you're thinking, or they're saying, I want to commit to you, but they're not really putting any action behind it. Or they're telling you, I don't really want to be in a committed relationship, but I'm still willing to, be with you. I just don't want to be fully committed. Or you discover that they are afraid of commitment, which basically it leads to the same thing. They're not going to commit to you, okay? You might be saying, well, that's fine. I'm not really looking for that anyway. Well, if you're not looking for that, this does not apply to you. But if you are in a relationship with someone and you want this to lead to a commitment and they've got one foot in and one foot out, that is not only a red flag, guys. That's a deal breaker. You got to cut it off. And the third red flag, which has to be a deal breaker, should be a no-brainer, but it's complicated, okay? If you are with someone who is doing you any kind of intentional harm, we're talking about abuse, physical abuse or aggression, emotional abuse, putting you down, calling you names, disrespecting you, sexual abuse, making you do things that you don't consent to, financial abuse, taking advantage of you financially, psychological abuse, gaslighting you, trying to make you think you're crazy, trying to make you doubt your sanity, trying to make you question yourself, tearing down your self-esteem. Any type of harm that is being done to you intentionally, intentional harm. Now you might be saying, well, what kind of harm isn't intentional? Sometimes we do things maybe out of anger or say things out of anger that our partners may find hurtful, but we weren't trying to hurt them. Lost control of my temper in an argument, right? Said something that hurt their feelings, but not necessarily something to personally attack them, because there's a difference, okay? If you say something about a situation out of anger and you disagree with someone, that's not the same as attacking them as a person. That's not the same as trying to tear down their self-confidence, their self-esteem. So I'm talking about intentional harm. I want to hurt you. I'm abusive with you. I'm attacking you. I want to make you think you're crazy. I want to take all your money, ruin your credit. These are things that don't happen by mistake, y'all. These are things that are well thought out and planned. So it's not an excuse when people say, well, I just lost control of my temper, or I didn't know that was going to affect you. Abuse is always intentional. Abuse is something that is meant to harm you. I know there are situations where, and this is a different subject, and I'm not going to get into that, but I am going to acknowledge that I know there are situations where some are trapped, or let me say, feel trapped in those relationships with abusive partners, and they don't see a way out, and they need additional help to get themselves out. The rule still applies. This is a deal breaker. But how you break the deal and how you get out of that situation is going to be a little bit more complicated, because you do have to consider your safety, especially if you're dealing with someone who is physically abusive and violent. But that's a deal breaker. And the fourth red flag that absolutely has to be a deal breaker is if you are dealing with someone who has a history of trauma and they absolutely refuse to get help. That's a no-go. Now, I know, especially those of us who are codependent and we are empaths and we like to help people and we like to rescue people and we like to fix people. We can be drawn to those types. But if someone has a history of trauma, they are going to struggle emotionally and mentally. And that is going to get in the way of them being able to have a healthy relationship. Now, you can be sympathetic, you can be empathetic and say, I'm going to be with this person anyway, no matter what. You can if you choose to do that. But what I'm telling you is it's going to be extremely difficult to have a healthy relationship. And if you want a healthy relationship with someone, then they have to be able to reciprocate that. And also, it depends on the type of trauma. If you are dealing with someone who has interpersonal trauma and they have been damaged interpersonally in relationships, especially if we're going all the way back to where it most likely originated. Family of origin, mommy issues, daddy issues. It's got to be worked out. You've got to get help for it. If you have unresolved trauma in your past and you know that and you are not willing to do anything about it, then that's kind of a deal breaker. To some of you, that may seem mean, but it's just the reality. Hurt people do hurt people until they break the cycle and get help. One of the things I always tell my kids when they tell me, I have 2 young adult daughters, and when they tell me about these new guys that they're dating, I ask them, what's their relationship like with their parents, particularly their mother? And one of them had mommy issues, and he was not getting any help for it. And I told my daughter, this is probably not going to be a healthy relationship for you. And it wasn't. This has happened more than once. And they've come back to me and said, Mom, you were right. When I get involved with these people that have these issues with their mother, I find that they have a hard time loving me and treating me with respect. Because they have something unresolved that they hadn't worked on, that they're not willing to work on, that is getting in the way of them having a healthy relationship with a woman. So it matters, guys. That's a deal breaker. If you're not willing to get help, it's not a deal breaker if you are dealing with someone and they have a history of trauma. It's a deal breaker if they ain't willing to do nothing about it. And the last red flag that I'm going to give you that has to be a deal breaker is if you are in a relationship with someone and hopefully you guys aren't married yet and you've talked about this, but your values are not in alignment. You want kids, they don't. You want to work, they want you to stay at home. You want to travel, they think traveling is a waste of money. You want to live in a big house, they like apartment living. You want to further your education, they think education is useless. All of these things matter. They absolutely matter because the decisions we make in our lives and the decisions we make in relationships is going to be a direct result of what we value. And if we don't value the same things, we're not going to agree on the same things. And if someone decides to go along for the purpose of appeasing the partner, but they're going against what they value, they will resent that person and they will be unhappy with their life. So that's the problem with that. That's how people tend to have resentments in relationships. It's like, oh, okay, I love this person, so I agreed to be with them, and I really wanted kids, but he didn't, so I agreed to have kids. And, now I'm older in my life and having kids is not an option, and I really resent this person for that. And I'm passive aggressive, and I can't be loving toward them, and I don't have positive feelings toward them. And now we're getting close to a divorce. And one thing that I really valued, that I really wanted, was a nuclear family of my own that included children. I couldn't have that. Values not in alignment, that matters. Maybe you value financial responsibility, and he or she, just blows money, don't know how to save, don't care about saving. So just something to think about, guys. There are probably other red flags that are deal breakers. I'm sure there are. I just wanted to give you a few. So put it in the comment section down below if you can think of any other red flags that I did not mention that are absolute deal breakers, and share any experiences that you guys may have had with these particular red flags as well. And if you like this video, guys, give it a thumbs up. That really does help my channel. It helps with the algorithm. If you have not subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting on? I'd love to have you. And thanks so much for watching, guys. Until next time, take care. Bye.